You ever get that feeling like something's just off about someone? Maybe it's the way they smile at your failures or how they twist words to make you doubt your own reality. Here's the hard truth. Some people aren't just difficult, they're dangerous. They don't argue, they manipulate. They don't make mistakes, they blame. And they don't just cause chaos, they enjoy it. Now, before you start side-eyeing everyone in your life, let's get one thing straight. We're not here to spread paranoia. We're here to sharpen your instincts. The Stoics believed that true wisdom lies in perception, the ability to see people for who they really are, not who they pretend to be. And when it comes to identifying evil, perception is your first line of defense. So today, we're diving into 5 unmistakable signs that you're dealing with an evil person. By the end of this video, you'll not only know how to spot them, but you'll also have practical Stoic strategies to protect yourself without losing your peace of mind. And hey, if you find this eye-opening, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. It's free, it helps the channel, and it ensures you won't miss our bonus section at the end, a powerful Stoic technique for setting boundaries with toxic people. Ready? Let's uncover the truth. 1. Charming and charismatic. There's something magnetic about charming people. You know the type, the ones who glide into a room with effortless ease, making everyone feel like they're the most important person in the world. It feels amazing, like a warm, welcoming embrace for your soul. But here's the catch. Some people use charm not as a reflection of their character, but as a tool of manipulation. At first, everything seemed great. They shower you with attention, ask all the right questions, and seem genuinely interested in your thoughts, dreams, and even the tiny, ridiculous details of your day. But the Stoics remind us of a crucial truth. Appearances can be deceiving. Marcus Aurelius warned that we should judge people not by their words, but by their actions over time. And over time, small cracks begin to show. Maybe they always steer conversations back to themselves, cutting you off mid-sentence to tell a more interesting version of whatever story you were trying to share. Maybe they subtly put others down in a way that seems harmless until you realize it's a pattern. And maybe, just maybe, you start to notice that their kindness isn't consistent. It's strategic. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're at a family gathering and a cousin you don't see often is there. Let's call him Alex. From the moment he arrives, he's the life of the party. He remembers everyone's name, tells hilarious stories, and makes each person feel like they're the star of the moment. It's impressive. As the evening goes on, though, you notice something strange. When others share something meaningful, Alex doesn't seem to engage. He nods, gives a quick, "That's great," and moves on. Then, when the attention isn't on him, his energy shifts. He zones out or even interrupts to redirect the focus back to himself. Later, when one of your relatives expresses something emotional, maybe talking about a difficult time they're going through, Alex barely acknowledges it, offering a dismissive, "Oh, that sucks," before cracking a joke to lighten the mood. At first, you tell yourself he's just a light-hearted guy. But then you start connecting the dots. He never truly listens. He isn't interested in anyone unless they're boosting his ego. And if he does do something nice, there's always an audience. This isn't just an outgoing personality at play, it's a need for control. The Stoics would urge us to observe without letting emotions cloud our judgment. Epictetus taught that we must see people for who they are, not who we wish them to be. One of the biggest red flags with manipulative charmers is how they handle disappointment. A person with genuine character will respond to setbacks with grace, understanding, and patience. But someone who thrives on superficial charm and control, The moment things don't go their way, their true nature starts to show. They might get passive-aggressive, sulk, or guilt-trip those around them. They might lash out in frustration, making it clear that their charm was never about kindness. It was about dominance. This is where Stoicism becomes our greatest tool. The philosophy teaches us the power of apatheia, not in the sense of apathy, but in the ability to remain undisturbed by external things. When you recognize that someone is using charm as a mask rather than a reflection of virtue, you gain the ability to detach. Instead of being swept away by their charisma, you can step back and observe. How do they treat people when there's no benefit to them? How do they respond when they aren't the center of attention? Are their acts of kindness consistent, or do they only appear when it serves their interests? Perhaps the most dangerous trait of such individuals is their lack of empathy. True empathy is the ability to understand and connect with others' emotions. It's what allows us to comfort a friend in pain, celebrate with someone in joy, and build meaningful relationships that extend beyond surface-level interactions. But there are people who lack this fundamental trait, not because they can't feel, but because they don't care. Imagine you've had a horrible week. You finally open up to someone about it, hoping for a little understanding. A good friend might offer support, validation, or even just a simple, "That sounds really tough." But instead, the person you confide in brushes it off. "Oh, that's nothing. I've had way worse happen to me." Or worse, they mock you for even feeling that way. You walk away from the conversation feeling smaller, dismissed, and maybe even embarrassed that you said anything at all. This isn't an accident. A person who lacks empathy doesn't see vulnerability as an opportunity to connect. They see it as a weakness to exploit or ignore. The Stoics believed in the interconnectedness of humanity. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on the idea that we are all part of a larger whole, and that considering the well-being of others is part of our own moral duty. When we come across someone who consistently disregards the feelings of others, it's a clear sign that they lack the virtues Stoicism upholds: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. So what do we do when we encounter such individuals? First, resist the urge to justify their behavior. But Stoicism teaches us to accept reality as it is. A lack of empathy isn't just a personality trait, it's a red flag. Second, protect your energy. You don't need to confront them or call them out dramatically. Instead, practice apatheia. Don't react emotionally. Don't get pulled into their charm, and don't expect them to change. The best way to deal with such people is distance. Finally, trust your instincts. If someone seems too good to be true, they just might be. True character reveals itself over time, in the quiet moments when no one is watching. Pay attention to how they treat people who can't offer them anything. Watch how they handle moments that don't serve them, and above all, stay grounded in your own virtue. The Stoics didn't believe in being suspicious of everyone, but they did believe in seeing the world clearly. And sometimes seeing clearly means recognizing that not all charm is genuine, and not all kindness comes from the heart. 2. Who lacks empathy? There's something deeply unsettling about being around someone who lacks empathy. At first, you might not even notice it. They might seem perfectly fine, friendly even, but as time goes on, something feels off. It's not just that they don't comfort you when you're down, it's that they fail to share in your joy when you're up. When something wonderful happens in your life, they don't celebrate with you. Instead, they downplay it, dismiss it, or worse, act as if it's an inconvenience to them. They might make sarcastic remarks, subtly undermine your achievements, or even try to take credit for them. Over time, you start feeling guilty for sharing good news, as if your happiness is somehow a burden. This lack of empathy isn't just a personal failing, it's a sign of something deeper. The Stoics would tell us that when someone is incapable of feeling joy for others, it's because their focus is entirely inward. Their world revolves around their own needs, their own struggles, their own wins. And anything that shifts the spotlight away from them feels like a threat. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, often reminded himself not to waste time worrying about the opinions of such people. He understood that those who lack empathy reveal more about themselves than they do about us. But this behavior isn't limited to friendships or family relationships. You see it everywhere. Think about the workplace. Imagine you're part of a team working on a major project. You put in long hours, come up with creative solutions, and deliver something truly outstanding. Your colleagues congratulate you, but your manager, nothing. No acknowledgement, no appreciation, just a cold, indifferent response. And then in the next meeting, they present your work as if it were their own idea. They reap the praise while you sit there, invisible. At first you tell yourself, maybe they just forgot to mention me. But then it happens again and again, and suddenly you realize it's not forgetfulness, it's a pattern. A boss who lacks empathy doesn't just overlook your efforts, they exploit them. They demand more and more without recognizing your contributions, without considering your well-being, and without caring about how their actions affect you. The Stoics would tell us that in situations like these, the most important thing is to maintain our own integrity. Seneca, another great Stoic thinker, emphasized that true strength comes from our ability to act with kindness and justice, regardless of how others behave. So, even when dealing with a toxic work environment, we should focus on what we can control, our own actions, our own boundaries, and our own self-respect. But here's the thing. A lack of empathy doesn't always show itself in dramatic ways. Sometimes it's in the little things. You might have a friend who constantly interrupts you, shifting every conversation back to themselves. Or someone who never asks how you're doing, never shows interest in your life, and never offers help when it's clearly needed. It's easy to brush these behaviors off at first. Oh, that's just how they are. But over time, they add up. They form a picture of someone who doesn't consider others, someone who sees relationships as a one-way street. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes invaluable. The Stoics would remind us that our time and energy are limited. We don't owe endless patience to people who drain us. Epictetus, one of the most practical Stoic philosophers, taught that we should be discerning about who we allow into our lives, not because we should judge harshly, but because the company we keep shapes our inner world. If someone consistently lacks empathy, consistently takes without giving, consistently diminishes rather than uplifts, why continue to invest in them? Setting boundaries isn't about punishing others. It's about protecting yourself. It's about recognizing that you have the right to distance yourself from those who leave you feeling drained and unseen. This doesn't mean you have to cut people off dramatically or hold grudges. It simply means choosing where to place your energy. And here's the real beauty of Stoicism. It teaches us that we don't need validation from others to feel at peace. If someone can't appreciate your happiness, that doesn't make your happiness any less real. If someone refuses to recognize your hard work, that doesn't make your work any less valuable. If someone lacks empathy, that's their burden to bear, not yours. At the end of the day, empathy is one of the strongest indicators of a person's character. And when you recognize that someone is missing this essential trait, the best thing you can do is adjust your expectations accordingly. Don't let their indifference define you. Stay true to your values, protect your energy, and surround yourself with people who genuinely care, because life is too short to spend it explaining your worth to people who were never interested in seeing it in the first place. 3. Manipulation. Manipulation is one of the most insidious tools in an evil person's arsenal. It doesn't announce itself loudly, like anger or aggression. Instead, it creeps in slowly, twisting reality until you start doubting your own instincts. Manipulators are experts at distorting the truth, bending situations in their favor, and making you feel like the irrational one. It's subtle, calculated, and over time, incredibly damaging. Imagine this. You have a co-worker, let's call him Jake, who's always so supportive, at least that's what it seems like at first. He praises your ideas in meetings, tells you how much he respects your work, and even offers to help when you're overwhelmed. You think, finally, someone who gets it. But then, something strange starts happening. He begins subtly correcting you in front of others, acting like he's just helping, but somehow making you look incompetent. When you bring it up, he acts shocked. "You're being too sensitive," he says. "I was just trying to help." The next time, he takes credit for a project you both worked on, downplaying your role when speaking to the higher-ups. Again, when confronted, he sighs and insists you must have misunderstood. And just like that, doubt creeps in. Maybe he's right. Maybe you are overreacting. This is gaslighting in action, one of the most dangerous forms of manipulation, because it makes you question your own perception of reality. The Stoics would warn us to stay grounded in logic and clarity, to trust in what we know rather than what we are being led to believe. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that the mind should remain steadfast, untangled from external confusion. When someone tries to distort your reality, the most powerful thing you can do is stay firm in your reasoning. Write things down if you have to, keep records of conversations, and trust your instincts. Manipulators thrive in the fog. Your job is to clear the air. Another classic manipulation tactic is playing the victim. You might have a friend who always has a crisis, always needs your help, always expects you to drop everything for them, but when the roles are reversed, they're nowhere to be found. At first, you feel like a good person for always being there. But after a while, you start realizing that this isn't friendship, it's a one-way transaction. They never ask how you're doing, never check in unless they need something, and if you hesitate to help, they guilt-trip you. "I thought we were close," they say, making you feel selfish for setting boundaries. This is where Stoicism provides an antidote. Epictetus taught that while we should be kind and compassionate, we are not responsible for carrying the burdens of others at the expense of our own well-being. A real friendship is built on reciprocity, not obligation. If someone is making you feel guilty for prioritizing yourself, take a step back and reassess the relationship. Flattery is another manipulator's weapon of choice. At first, it feels great. Who doesn't love to be admired? But be wary of compliments that feel just a little too calculated. A manipulator will often use praise as a means to control. They'll make you feel special, chosen, irreplaceable, but only as long as you're doing what they want. The moment you push back, their warmth turns cold. Suddenly, you're no longer amazing or the only person who understands them. Instead, you're difficult, ungrateful, even selfish. True Stoic wisdom reminds us that self-worth should come from within, not from the shifting approval of others. If someone's opinion of you changes the moment you stop serving their needs, they never truly valued you. They valued what you could do for them. One of the most dangerous forms of manipulation is isolation. This is where control goes beyond subtle mind games and into full-scale domination. A manipulative person might start by subtly criticizing your friends and family, planting seeds of doubt about the people you trust. "They don't really support you like I do," they might say, or "I just don't think they understand you." Over time, you start pulling away from others, relying more and more on the manipulator for validation. Before you know it, you're cut off, without the outside perspectives that might have helped you see the situation for what it really is. The Stoics teach us the importance of a strong support network. Humans are social creatures, and we thrive in healthy communities. If someone is trying to isolate you, recognize it for what it is, an attempt to weaken your sense of independence. No one who truly cares about you would ever want you to be alone. Then there's financial manipulation. This one is particularly dangerous because it directly impacts your ability to leave a bad situation. Imagine you're in a relationship where your partner slowly starts taking over all financial matters. At first, it seems like a convenience. "I'll handle the bills," they say. But soon, you realize you no longer have control over your own money. You have to ask for permission to make purchases, justify your spending, or even endure guilt trips about how irresponsible you are. This is not about financial responsibility, it's about control. The Stoics would urge us to maintain self-sufficiency. Money, like all external things, is not the key to happiness, but losing control over it can lead to dependency, and dependency makes us vulnerable to manipulation. If someone is controlling your finances to limit your choices, they are not looking out for you. They are trapping you. Recognizing manipulation isn't always easy, especially when it comes from someone you care about. But the Stoics teach us to value truth over comfort. Seneca reminds us that virtue lies in acting with wisdom and justice, not in pleasing everyone around us. If you suspect you're being manipulated, step back and look at the situation objectively. Are your feelings constantly being dismissed? Do you feel like you're walking on eggshells? Are your needs and boundaries ignored? If the answer is yes, it's time to set limits. At the core of Stoic philosophy is the idea that while we cannot control how others behave, we can control how we respond. The best defense against manipulation is clarity. See people for who they truly are, not who you wish them to be. Stay firm in your values, trust your own judgment, and remember, no one has the right to distort your reality, guilt you into compliance, or control your choices. The moment you recognize manipulation for what it is, you take away its power. And in doing so, you reclaim your own. If you've found these insights valuable, let me know by commenting "yes" below. Your thoughts matter, and I'd love to hear from you. 4. Controlling person. Control and manipulation often start subtly, making them hard to recognize at first. One of the most dangerous ways control manifests is through isolation. A manipulator may claim that they are the only one who truly understands you, discouraging your relationships with friends and family. Over time, you may find yourself cut off, relying solely on them for emotional support. The Stoics warned against this, emphasizing the importance of maintaining strong, independent relationships. Marcus Aurelius believed that humans thrive in communities, and anyone who tries to sever your connections is not acting in your best interest. True support encourages freedom, not isolation. Another common tool of control is fear. Manipulative individuals use threats, whether it's leaving you, harming themselves, or even harming you, to maintain power. This creates an environment of anxiety where your decisions become dictated by their emotional outbursts. Seneca taught that courage means refusing to let fear control you. If someone in your life is making you feel trapped, recognize that this is not love, it is manipulation. True respect and care do not come with ultimatums. Control also takes the form of dishonesty, particularly pathological lying. Unlike small lies, pathological lying is constant and unnecessary, distorting reality to serve the liar's interests. A pathological liar doesn't just deceive occasionally, they create an entire world of falsehoods, making it difficult for you to distinguish truth from fiction. At first, the lies may seem harmless, exaggerating achievements, omitting details, but over time they escalate. You might notice inconsistencies, but when you confront them, they insist you misunderstood. This is gaslighting, a form of manipulation designed to make you doubt yourself. The Stoics emphasized the importance of truth and integrity. Marcus Aurelius believed that aligning with reality, rather than fabricating a false one, is fundamental to living virtuously. A pathological liar, by contrast, lives in direct opposition to these values. If you constantly feel unsure around someone, questioning whether their words match reality, pay attention. Lies require constant maintenance, but the truth stands firm. Pathological lying can also be destructive in professional settings. A deceitful colleague may exaggerate their contributions, take credit for others' work, or spread false rumors to gain advantage. This creates a toxic environment where trust erodes. The Stoics would remind us to stay focused on what we can control, our own integrity. While you can't change how others behave, you can choose not to participate in their deception. In personal relationships, chronic lying causes even deeper harm. If your partner constantly distorts reality, leaving you feeling anxious and insecure, recognize that this is not normal. The Stoics remind us that peace comes from within, not from constantly trying to decipher someone else's lies. Ultimately, whether dealing with control, threats, or deceit, the answer remains the same: set boundaries and stand firm. The Stoics taught that while we cannot control others, we can control how we respond. Protect your peace, trust your instincts, and refuse to let manipulation dictate your life. 5. Liar. When you catch someone in a lie, their reaction tells you everything. A person of integrity, when confronted with the truth, will acknowledge their mistake, take responsibility, and work to correct it. But a pathological liar, they will twist reality, get defensive, maybe even lash out or try to turn the tables, making you feel like the problem. They don't just deny, they weave an even more elaborate web of deception, layering lie upon lie until you begin to question your own memory. This is how manipulation works, and if you're not careful, it can make you feel like you're losing your grip on reality. The Stoics would remind us to remain calm and rational when faced with such deceit. Marcus Aurelius believed that allowing others' dishonesty to provoke anger or distress in us only gives them power over our minds. Instead, he would advise us to observe, analyze, and act accordingly without emotional entanglement. But let's be honest, this is easier said than done. When trust is broken, it changes everything. A relationship, whether personal or professional, without trust is like a house built on sand. It may stand for a while, but eventually it crumbles under the weight of suspicion and resentment. Imagine you're working on a big project with a colleague, and you both agree to divide the workload equally. Days later, your boss calls a meeting, praising your colleague for the excellent work you both contributed to. Confused, you confront them, only to hear a smooth, well-rehearsed excuse. "Oh, I was going to mention your part, but it slipped my mind." The next time they take full credit again, and suddenly you realize this wasn't an accident. They're using deception for personal gain. And now, you're in a position where you must decide. Do you keep playing along, hoping they'll change, or do you set boundaries and protect yourself? The Stoics would tell you that the answer is clear. Maintain your integrity and refuse to engage in deceit. Seneca believed that once someone shows you their true nature, you must act accordingly, not in anger, but with wisdom. If trust has been repeatedly broken, you have two choices: attempt to rebuild it, knowing the risk, or walk away and protect your peace. Not everyone deserves unlimited chances. This is where boundaries become essential. A boundary is not a wall to shut people out, but a guidepost that defines what you will and will not tolerate. If someone constantly disrespects your time, emotions, or values, it's your responsibility to draw the line. The Stoics saw boundary setting as an act of self-respect. Epictetus taught that while we cannot control how others behave, we can control what we allow into our lives. Clarity is everything when setting boundaries. If you have a relative who constantly criticizes your choices rather than getting defensive or arguing, a Stoic approach would be to calmly say, "I respect your opinion, but I won't engage in discussions where I feel undermined." No anger, no drama, just a clear, firm statement. And here's the key: enforce it. Words mean nothing if your actions don't match. If the disrespect continues, you distance yourself. No need for lengthy explanations or justifications. The Stoics remind us that setting a boundary once is easy. Upholding it consistently is the real test. In the end, maintaining your peace and integrity is more important than holding on to relationships that thrive on dishonesty or manipulation. If someone continually disrespects your boundaries, see it for what it is: a lack of respect. And if they don't respect you, why give them unlimited access to your life? Stoicism teaches us that true strength lies in knowing when to walk away, not out of anger, but out of wisdom. Setting boundaries isn't a one-time event. It's a lifelong practice. Just like everything else in life, relationships evolve, and so do the limits you need to set to protect your peace. What worked for you a year ago might not be enough today. Maybe at work, you used to take on every extra task thrown your way, eager to prove yourself. But now you realize that constantly saying yes has left you exhausted, staying late while others pack up and head home. You're stretched too thin, and the frustration is bubbling over. At some point, you have to draw the line. The Stoics would advise you to balance your duties, not overextend yourself to the point of burnout. Marcus Aurelius believed in doing what is necessary, not what is excessive, and in recognizing that our well-being is not something we should sacrifice for the sake of pleasing others. Of course, not everyone will be happy when you start setting boundaries. People who have benefited from your lack of limits may push back. You might face guilt-tripping, passive-aggressive comments, or even outright anger. Someone who is used to controlling you won't surrender that control easily. They'll test your resolve, waiting for you to cave. This is where Stoicism becomes your shield. When Marcus Aurelius wrote about maintaining composure in the face of negativity, he wasn't just offering poetic wisdom, he was giving a battle strategy. When someone reacts poorly to your boundaries, don't engage in emotional warfare. Stay calm, stand firm, and remind yourself that their discomfort is not your problem. It's simply the result of them realizing they can no longer manipulate you. Sometimes setting boundaries means making hard choices, choices that may include walking away. There are people in life who will never respect the limits you set. And that's when you have to ask yourself, is this relationship worth the cost of your mental and emotional health? The Stoics believed that the people we surround ourselves with shape our character. Seneca warned against keeping company with those who corrupt our peace and integrity. If someone repeatedly violates your boundaries despite clear communication, they are showing you who they truly are. And when someone reveals themselves like that, believe them. Sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is choosing to distance yourself. But setting boundaries doesn't mean you have to go it alone. Having a support system is crucial. Maybe you have a trusted friend who reminds you why you started setting these boundaries in the first place. Maybe it's a family member who validates your experience, or even a therapist who helps you navigate difficult relationships. The Stoics valued community, not in the superficial sense, but in the deep belief that we thrive when we have others to walk alongside us. Even Marcus Aurelius, an emperor, often reflected on the importance of learning from and leaning on wise people. Seeking support isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And let's not forget one of the most essential aspects of boundary setting: self-care. If you don't take care of yourself, if you don't recharge and reflect, your boundaries will weaken over time. It's easy to slip back into old habits, to fall into patterns of overgiving and overextending. The Stoics understood that maintaining inner peace isn't just about resisting external pressures. It's about nurturing yourself so that you have the strength to stand firm. Epictetus emphasized that we must care for our own well-being before we can truly be of service to others. This isn't selfishness, it's survival. So, as you move forward, remember this: boundaries are not barriers. They are the foundation of a life lived with clarity, dignity, and purpose. Stay strong, stay wise, and never let anyone make you feel guilty for valuing yourself. The world will always test your limits. Make sure you are the one defining them. Dealing with an evil person isn't just exhausting. It's like arguing with a tornado and expecting it to apologize. The Stoics knew that the best defense isn't revenge or endless debates. It's clarity, boundaries, and walking away with your peace intact. So, spot the signs, trust your instincts, and don't waste your energy trying to fix what refuses to be repaired. Your sanity is worth more than their chaos. If this resonated with you, hit that subscribe button. Stay strong, stay sharp, and most importantly, stay one step ahead.